Hey, it's Matt. Welcome to another episode of Unbearable 73. I'm going to be reviewing Masters of the Year Part 8 in this one. So to start with, whereas Episode 7 had like almost no, I had nothing but down below to my text, I have a whole section, Episode 8, and several links of information that can give you much more in-depth than just a show will give you, obviously. So what is this episode? Obviously, Auschwitz to Rome, Italy, 1944. So we've significantly time skipped. The first 5 or 6 episodes were in 1943 in like a 3-month span. Now we're hopping forward. We're approaching D-Day in this episode. D-Day is significant for me as a grandchild of a World War II veteran, and all his peers were, and most of them were in World War II in one form or another. My grandfather went on the beaches in Normandy, second wave. And he was the only person in his entire company to survive the war who went in on the beaches. Okay, and I've talked before about the battle where he lost, where he almost got killed by artillery on the crossing side of the Remagen Bridge, and about to take that control of that. And anyway, so that being said, what this episode is basically, the last episode was sort of like a downtime episode where they're showing you what all the pilots doing during their downtime. Those in captivity and those in freedom, right? This one is a prelude. It kind of has bits of action in it and prelude to. I'm presuming. Okay, so we see the pilots in the camps training for the 3 possibilities with the Germans. Okay, because after the escape attempts that occurred, Hitler and the Germans had ordered the SS to take over the prison camps. So that meant they were going to do 3 things. Okay. They were either going to execute them to as a final stab, okay, which there was some of that, but not a lot. The German military wouldn't have tolerated that because they know the retaliation would have been their own prisoners, which the Nazis didn't care about, obviously, their own prisoners. The other option was moving them someplace because they were valuable hostages, and there were those in the Nazi command who felt that they could negotiate into the war. At that point, even Hitler didn't believe that. And the other possibility was they would do an escape attempt of some sort, okay? In the particular camp we're in, which is Stalag Luft 3, but other escape attempts have been going on, as I mentioned, which led to what happened here, where the SS is put in command of all of the camps, and which will lead to much more interrogation, which really at that point in the war, while they interrogated the new people per se, you see some of that interrogation attempt in here with one of the lieutenants from the Tuskegee Airmen. And the German military knew there wasn't much to be gained by interrogation at this point, less so than maybe co-opting some of the pilots and learning some techniques and things like that from them, piloting techniques and whatever. So that's kind of where the POW part of it stands. And on the how do you say, on the offensive side, one of the big things that begins to happen here with some of the links that I put. There was always... So this show has avoided a lot of the controversies as much as it could. They allude to the change in command in the Air Corps, which was led to other changes, but they avoid the political conflict, right? So Churchill is a controversial figure who... not for purpose of me. I mean, if we had listened to Churchill, so much would have been avoided in the Middle East, in Europe, and with the Cold War. He was proven right over and over again, but people didn't listen to him. That's why he was removed from power the first time. And you get the people like Neville Chamberlain, who just made it worse. He comes back in, basically leads Britain during the war. Yet he and Roosevelt profoundly disagree on the nature of the Soviet threat. And, so that's the politics at play here, with Operation Overlord, which was D-Day, Operation Bertrand, I can't quite remember, which was an operation in southern France to put, after D-Day had gone out, to put land another group of men and take over another foothold in France so that they could force the Germans to divide their forces and whatever. But what ultimately happened is the German military abandoned that area and fortified against the Normandy invasion, which made that much more brutal as the Allies were trying to fight their way inland from there. And so it seemed an apparent success, but the troopers that the Germans left were basically conscripts from conquered territories of former Soviet states who, when they went home, were grateful for the Soviets because they were basically brutalized by the Allies in that southern area, and it led, as Churchill pointed out, it ultimately will lead to complications with the Soviet Union after the war, and people historians now think he's right that they should have done that invasion. Okay, but that's where the Tuskegee Airmen come into the war. They engaged in a deep bombing campaigns in that area to help support. But the Luftwaffe had already been severely damaged by that point. In any case, and that's where our Tuskegee Airmen get taken captive and brought to Stalag Luft 3. I don't know the accuracy of if they all wound up at the same camp or not. I can't tell you that. So that's why I put the real articles from like World War II, the National World War II Museum, a couple Wikipedia things, and Encyclopedia Britannica. So I give you some information you can do in depth. Okay, and then on the Allied side, Harry Crosby is now, I think he's a major now, or even a colonel, and he's responsible for planning a lot of the bombing runs that supposedly softened the Germans up for Operation Overlord, among other things. And he's given, and in the show, he's given credit for successful. He stays awake 3 or 4 days straight and passes out and winds up sleeping through. Basically, it shows you that it follows our three main characters. Buck Cleaver, Buck Egan, and Harry Crosby, with our supporting characters that have been coming along the way. Okay, so that's kind of the setup of the episode. Let's do a little page through here. Beautiful work with the CGI. So the Tuskegee Airmen find a P-51, which is again the first real entrant of the Allies' side with a piece of technology that was equal to the Germans. There's our opening with beautiful shot. Now, for those of you who would think, okay, they're going to go woke with this episode, we got Tuskegee Airmen, or this is going to be a tokenized episode. They touch on the racial politics, but they touch on the racial politics of the actual time period. They don't interject our current politics into this when we've grossly blown the situation out of control and proportion. The people at the time, you'll hear some, obviously they can't use the racial epithets they would have at the time, but these men, even though these are honorable men serving their country, they were insulted by some of their pilots, but they couldn't. They would use like, "Why are they here?" We know in reality they would say certain words we can't say anymore. Well, we can't say it, right? At least on the internet. So I like that they're historically accurate in that sense. They give you the real racial politics of these guys, how they're dealing with the situation they're in. The advancement of being pilots and all that, and the prestige of it, converse with the limitations of society that they were functioning. Because at the time, Black Americans were on the process of working their way up, and through the 1950s, Black Americans were a rising economic powerhouse, a strong ethnic group in the United States. By that, the boost of the groups like the Tuskegee Airmen and a couple other groups in World War II were a big boost to that sort of level of advancement. And why they went to hell after that? Well, the whole Lyndon Johnson Great Society / re-enslavement of the black man, which is basically what he wanted. Anyway, let's get out. Let's talk about this. So, real good effort to maintain historical accuracy here. Now, this episode also has a lot of... I know there was some criticism of the show for too much character development time. And I could see that case. That's why I think they would have been better off to make this a multi-year series about even more pilots and be showing the air campaigns like do chunks, like 3 episodes about these guys, and 3 episodes about some pilots, maybe about Tuskegee Airmen, and 3 episodes about some pilots in another part of you know, throw some British, maybe throw the British Air Corps in there, you know, like jump around for a few seasons, advance the storyline in terms of the timeline of World War II. Then maybe in season 3 deal with 1944 with the escape attempts and this part D-Day and all that sort of stuff we're at right now. You know, so instead whatever. But this episode, the character moments to me really work here. Okay, because they're building tension towards what's going to happen in the final episode. Although. So this is the character what's his face, Cabot Crosby, who stays awake for 3 days straight, and he's using uppers, amphetamines, to keep him and plus a large amount of coffee, because he thinks he can't sleep. He has to get all these plans in, and the character talks about that in terms of what's going on. You know, this is the female British spy. She's in the field in Germany, or in occupied France, I think. This is preparations for D-Day. There was a lot of this. That would be an interesting thing, a mini-series about all the sort of covert work that went into, you know, with the resistance and the spies and whatever. That would be an interesting mini-series to see. The briefing with the bombing campaign and all, you know, standard. Now, this is what they would do is the men were obviously trying to keep themselves in shape, some of them. There was also the tensions arising in a prison camp. You get that sort of stuff, you know. Why, okay, we'll go back to that. Why they're depicted in some sort of MMA, jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, footlock grappling. I mean, I can almost guarantee, in fact, I'd have to do research. Did these two guys know how to wrestle that they would realistically do that and not just have a knockdown brawl? I don't know. That's a point of like loss for me. Why they would depict them in like with Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn having a fight or something, or better Ken Shamrock and Akira Sakuraba, you know, doing dueling leg locks. Here's some of the realistic racial tensions at the time. You know. So that, again, well done on that part. Not woke, just properly done. You know. Yeah, the Luftwaffe was really weak. In terms of like they had taken a pounding. Yeah. The man bombing, and the usual good stuff. So now they're using a tree stump remover to keep themselves in the shape. The men are taking turns on it to build the work to keep their body strength up, because they're malnourished. The Germans aren't starving them per se; they're giving them rations, but even the German soldiers don't have the rations, you know. And there is some effort to raise crops, and the soldiers are out to raise crops and try to feed themselves and whatnot. That the German again, not the SS, but the actual German military was trying to do something, trying to run reasonable prison camps. So the officers, 2 of the officers were put in the same bunk with the the Caucasian officers, the European descent officers. That's what I'm going to call for now. I'm not playing these racial games anymore. Okay, and now that they're sharing some what keeps them sane during all this, and of course they're trying to see if they form an alliance with and get in on the sort of command of the American pilots. And this is them preparing for a potential escape or to defend themselves against mass execution attempts. And that's basically our movie. That's basically our episode, okay? Great episode. Probably the best since like the 3rd or 4th. Certainly the best since the 5th episode, if I remember my episodes correctly. So, after the 5th episode, there was 6 and 7 were a bit downturn. but they were still really good. Now we're back up. The penultimate episode is putting us in place for the finish, which I think is going to be the TV show version of The Great Escape. I think, or something similar to that. We'll see. Anyway, there's some fascinating reading links I put in my section of the text below with episode 8. So for those who are interested in the reading, every time I do an episode, I'm making it cumulative going forward. So in other words, I'm appending to the bottom of the list more stuff about each episode, right? Just so you can keep reading on it. I know some people will do it backwards, but I don't know. That's the way I'm doing it. And theoretically, whenever something happens, you'll have a list of all the reading materials in one place. Maybe you can copy paste that out to a document on your local hard drive, and then you can reference it in the future if you're curious. Anyway, comment down below if you have any questions or thoughts. Share this link out if you can. Thank you for watching along with me. We've got one more episode to go next week, and hopefully it'll conclude in a very good way. My name is Matt. This is Unbearable 73. Have a great weekend, and like if you like, dislike if you dislike, and I am out of here.